Hello YouTube, got another watch video today, so thought we'd have a look at this Seiko this time. This is a watch I've had since the early 90s. It was a graduation present from around 1991 or possibly 92, so it's about 30 years old now. And it's the sort of fairly famous Seiko Dancing Hands model, one of those. There was a variety of different movements and models that had the dancing hands mechanism. Unfortunately the battery is flat at the moment, so I thought we'd take a look at replacing the battery and hopefully it'll still work, and then I'll give a quick demo of what the dancing hands look like. So let's get started. So let's get started by taking the strap off. So I've got a little tool here that as I've shown in a previous video, I've got a set of very cheap watch repair tools off Amazon for only about 15-16 quid, something like that. But I have changed the battery in this watch before, just using standard kind of household tools. I know it's not that difficult, but hopefully it'll be a bit easier now. A little bit of a knack to it. That's out. So that should come out of there now. Get the other end out. Okay. Put that little pin somewhere safe so I don't lose it. That makes getting the other end of the strap out much easier now that it's not in the way. So there we are. Let's see the watch on its own and have a quick look at the information on the back there. Not sure if you can how well you can see that, but it's a it says Seiko water resistant stainless steel, and the movement is an 8M25, and the serial number starts with 91, so I guess that's 1991 perhaps. So let's get the back off. Look to see if I can find a little indentation where I can start getting something under the back there. Looks like it's the type that just levers off. I can't see a good place to start there, but let's see if it will just come off easily. That's almost getting under the edge, but it's not enough to loosen the back. Oh no, it's moving now, there we go. You can see little gaps appeared there now, so that's going to come off quite easily now. Just leave that round the edge. Just remember to put the back back on the other way around, I think, because the back is upside down relative to the front for some reason. O-ring's a little bit gooey. That looks alright. So there's the mechanism. Looks fairly good in here, I think. But there's the battery, so let's get that changed out for a fresh one, and hopefully the watch will still work. That screw's loose now. Let's see if I can get it out of there without losing it. Okay, that's out. Get that clamp out of the way. This battery looks a little bit corroded. It doesn't look great. I hope it doesn't seem to have leaked. There's just a little bit of corrosion on the edge of the battery there, but it doesn't seem to have leaked, so I think that's going to be okay. So let's get a new battery to fit in. 371 code number, but it's the same dimensions as the old one. So that just pops in here. And I've got to try and get these hilariously small screws back in here, so this is going to take a while. Excuse me getting my hands in the way. Alright, got one screw in, almost lost the other screw. It pinged out of the tweezers and flew off several inches away, but managed to find it, so let's try and get this one back in as well. That's dropped straight into the hole nice and easily, so just see if I can tighten it up. Let's put the back on. The back has these two cutouts here that correspond to the buttons, and one on the other side for the crown, which don't necessarily seem to be needed, but I might as well get them lined up properly anyway. So that goes there. And just press it back on. There we go. So, is it working? Well, the hands have moved. So what should happen is if I turn this to, say, the chrono mode, and then press the button, nothing happens. Oh dear. Well, it's now about 5 weeks later since that video that you've just seen. When the watch didn't immediately work with the new battery, I was very tempted just to start taking it bits further, just to see what would happen, but this watch does have some sentimental value to me, so I didn't want to ruin it, so I decided instead to send it off to Seiko UK to be serviced. So I did that. I had some idea that the watch was not completely broken, because although it didn't work properly with the new battery, when I just left the watch on my desk for a few days, and occasionally in the mornings I'd come down and the hands would have moved a bit, so clearly the mechanism was trying to work sometimes, and occasionally the watch would just suddenly beep for no apparent reason, but it was obviously not in a good state. I don't know what the problem was. The new battery was obviously not connected properly. I think there may have been some damage from the old battery having leaked into the mechanism or whatever. So sent it off to Seiko. They had it for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it came back. But unfortunately, it's still not quite right. The actual movement is working much better, but there is still a little problem with it, which I'll show you now. And as you can see fairly clearly, the problem is that the little quadrant indicator here has just popped off its shaft on the face of the watch. It should be down here. It wasn't like this when it actually came out of the box. When I first received it back, I was quite pleased to see when I first got it out of that box that it looked perfect. What seems to have happened is that the quadrant thing there wasn't quite in the right, wasn't quite level on the shaft. And when I started playing with the movement and getting the hands to move around, the bottom end of the hour hand here collided with the quadrant thing there and knocked it off its shaft. It just sort of popped off and ended up just rolling about on its own inside the case there, so it's not great. Obviously what I should do is send it back to Seiko and get them to fix it, but that would make a very good video. So I'm going to take the back off, have a look at what they've done inside, see if we can see any differences from how it looked before. Try and put that thing back on, and then we'll have a proper look at how the watch actually behaves when it's all working properly. Right, so let's see what we can see inside. Just pop the back off again, like we did before. Got a nice new O-ring on there. The mechanism does look nice and clean. So, as I say, I don't know what they've done with it. I didn't get any kind of report back from Seiko as to what they'd found or any parts they might have changed, but this area here was definitely a bit discoloured before. I'm trying to remember back from a few weeks ago, but we'll have a look at the old video in a minute. Compare the before and after, but it all looks nice and clean in here, so that's good. So what I need to do is just take out this plastic surround and take out the crown, and then we can get the whole movement out of the case. So take this surround out here, and the crown itself comes out fairly easily, just requires pressing this. There's a tiny sort of leaf spring here, as you can see on the left end of the tweezers there, just a little dimple there. If I press that down with the end of the tweezers, the whole crown wheel will just slide out. Crown pinion, I guess it should be called. It's not a wheel, is it? Crown shaft, perhaps. So that comes out fairly straightforwardly. It's got a tiny O-ring on it as well to keep the case clean, I guess. Stop dust getting in there. So now this whole movement will come out with the face and the hands, obviously everything attached on the back, so I need to be quite careful with this. There we are. You can see the hands have moved since just now. The movement's all working, telling the time correctly now. Let's try and work out what happened with this. I'm hoping this is going to be not a long-term problem. Okay, well that's on, but it took approximately no pressure at all to get that pressed onto that shaft. So I do wonder if that is just going to come off again as the watch gets used and bumped around. It's definitely on there. It's very nice and flat down to the main part of the face. It's well below the sort of plane of where the hour hand is going to sweep round over the top of it. So I think it's in the right position. I'm just not convinced it's going to stay there when this watch gets bumped around and used. But maybe it will. Let's put the watch back together, and then we'll see how we've done. So the watch is back together. I've put the strap back on, and let's have a quick look at how this actually works. So this is, as I said before, the Dancing Hands movement, made by Seiko in the early 90s as a sort of quartz analog watch hybrid concept. There's lots of different types of dancing hands. If you search online, you'll find lots of different varieties of these, the same idea, lots of different cases and styles. But the idea is basically that the watch's internal computer can control the two hands independently. So although right now it's just showing the time as normal and the minute and hour hands will advance as you would expect, they're not actually geared together inside the watch. So if I use this, turn the crown wheel to move this sort of mode quadrant thing, if I turn it to chrono, you see the hands move around to the sort of starting position for the stopwatch independently of each other. They just move around, find their way to the top. If I press the top button there, it starts the stopwatch. Press again to stop. The bottom button to reset. I think it even does laps. So if I let it count up to 5 seconds and then press the start button again, that's actually just like a lap timer. So I've got 5 seconds. And I think, I can't remember, after a few seconds it will just move on and catch up to where it should be. Or perhaps I need to press the button again. No, it's just going to carry on. Okay. Maybe this is the lap timer. I press the button, press the bottom one here. So I think that's doing lap timing. So I press it again. Yeah, the minute hand whizzes round. It's kind of effectively a second hand now as it's counting seconds. So the bottom button does the lap timer. Top one does start and stop, and then bottom one resets. And we can then also go around to this setting here, says alarm set. So the alarm is currently set for 3:10, but again you can just, by pressing the buttons, just change what time the alarm is set for. Let's get the hands out of the way of there. And then the setting here, just the hands will go back to show the time, but now the alarm is armed, so the alarm will sound at the set time. There's also a timer mode, so if I go down to the bottom here, that one says timer, and again the hands will go straight up to the top to the sort of starting position, but now I can select how long I want the timer to run for by pressing the bottom button. And that goes forward 1 minute at a time, and when I press start now, the second hand runs backwards, counting down. And again, when it gets to 0, the alarm will sound to signal that the time's finished. And stop and reset again. And then obviously it's keeping track of the time internally, so if I just go back round to time, it will just go back to show the current time. And the final mode here is the one on the bottom left here, which is a kind of settings mode. So this is where you would go if you want to reset the time or to reposition the hands, because after changing the battery, the watch will forget where the hands are, and you have to kind of manually tell the watch, reset the hands to the 12 o'clock position, so that it then knows where to move the hands to show the correct time. But it also has this demo function, so if I press the start button now, it just starts doing this kind of showing off, which would have been used in jeweler shops back in the day to demonstrate the sort of clever features of this movement. I'll just sit there and do that in your jeweler's window forever. Press the top button again to stop it, and I go back to the sort of home position, and let's go back to just normal time mode. there you go. So, very nice, clever movement. Obviously didn't really catch on. They were quite popular for a while. I think Seiko made quite a lot of them, but obviously the idea didn't really take off in any big way. Although analog watches are still very popular, this kind of dancing hands is not around anymore. But I've had this one about 30 years now, so I'm quite glad that it's still working. Needed a bit more than a battery replacement, but after a bit of tinkering and a service from Seiko and a bit more tinkering, it's back in full working order, so hopefully it will last another 30 years. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit like, and you can always subscribe if you're interested in more watch videos. I've got at least one more Seiko that I might make a video about in the coming weeks. But that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.